Cockroach Janta Party ups the pressure with a 24-hour ultimatum, standing firm on their demand for Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation, even as the centre reaches out through various talks and, of course, reforms, fresh assurances. We're going to decode all of that. Then, India's indigenous long-range air defense shield, it is starting to take shape. Mission Sudarshan Chakra is what we're talking about. What can it do? Where does it fit in our security architecture? And what challenges and current limitations still remain? The E20 debate. No return to regular petrol, ladies and gentlemen. The government stands by E20, but the motorists' concerns over mileage and older vehicles, have they been fully addressed? And finally, we end our In Your Interest segment with the numbers from Jananayagan's big opening. Chief Minister Vijay's farewell film has stormed the box office with yet another blockbuster star. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi. First, take a look at the top headlines. Cockroach Janta Party spokesperson Saurav Das says the government has, in principle, agreed to two key demands, but calls their third key demand, the demand for the resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan, the Union Education Minister, as non-negotiable. Meanwhile, Rahul Gandhi, leader of opposition, accuses the government of lying about use of pellet guns at the protesters in the national capital. He claims that some protesters sustained serious injuries. This is what is picking up. Major development as the government cracks down on the National Testing Agency. 47 officials identified to be removed amidst the overhaul and a structural rejig of the national testing body. Rain fury continues across the country. 13 killed as a portion of a hillside collapses onto a vehicle in Himachal's Chamba.
Dharmendra Pradhan istifa do.
The battle over the NEET paper leak and the protests that we've been seeing in the national capital near Jantar Mantar and the entire central Delhi vicinity has clearly entered a new phase. The slogans on the streets have now reached the negotiation table, but the biggest question still remains unanswered. Take a look at this. You've got two rounds of talks that have taken place between the government and the Cockroach Janta Party. The latest meeting between Union Ministers J.P. Nadda and Dr. Jitendra Singh and the CJP delegation Ashutosh Ranka and Saurav Das, it lasted close to about 2 hours. The atmosphere may have been more conciliatory than confrontational, but there is still no final breakthrough. And why we say that is because the Cockroach Janta Party has made it abundantly clear that its core demands are not up for any negotiation. At the top of that list is the resignation of the Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. It's non-negotiable, says Saurav Das, the chief spokesperson. It is also demanding 1 crore rupees compensation for the families of the NEET aspirants who died by suicide. It is also asking for the withdrawal of the FIRs against the protesting students, a public apology by the Delhi police and the Rapid Action Force leadership, and structural reforms to India's examination system through a 5-point charter that has also been submitted. Now, the message from the protest leaders is simple. Without accountability, there can be no closure, and we will stand our ground. Here's what the government says. The government is asking for more time at this point in time. They say the talks have been cordial, they've been amicable. J.P. Nadda says these demands will be discussed internally before a response is given soon, by tomorrow afternoon or so. And the centre has indicated that discussions on compensation and the framework for the withdrawal of these FIRs have received a positive response in principle, but on the demand for the Education Minister's resignation, there is still no commitment, which means dialogue is continuing, but the central political question still remains unresolved. Listening to what the major stakeholders here have to say, and we'll move on.
J.P. Nadda जी के साथ डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जो DOPT के भी मिनिस्टर है, PMO के भी मिनिस्टर है, वो वहां पे मौजूद थे, साथ में उनके 1-2 ऑफिसर्स भी। हम लोगों ने बहुत साफ शब्दों में और राइटिंग में उनको बताया हमारे 3 मेन डिमांड्स। नंबर 1 क्या है? सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है? धर्मेंद्र प्रधान इस्तीफा दो। तो नंबर 1 डिमांड जो नॉन नेगोशिएबल है कि या तो धर्मेंद्र प्रधान इस्तीफा दे या तो उनको मंत्रिमंडल से बर्खास्त करे सरकार। नॉन नेगोशिएबल। नंबर 2 1 करोड़ का मुआवजा सारे फैमिलीज के लिए जिनके बच्चे इस नीट के ब्रोकन करप्ट एजुकेशन सिस्टम के वजह से आत्महत्या करके मर गए। 1 करोड़ का मुआवजा। नंबर 3 जितने हमारे भाई बहन यहां पे पीसफुल तरीके से प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे एंड जिन्होंने ब्रुटैलिटी सहा पुलिस के वजह से एंड उनके ऊपर एफआईआर दर्ज हुआ, वो सारे एफआईआर विड्रॉ किए जाए। किसी के ऊपर एफआईआर नहीं होना चाहिए, अगर हुआ है तो वो सारे एफआईआर विड्रॉ हो एंड सरकार एक सॉवरेन गारंटी दे हमें लिखित में कि फ्यूचर में भी किसी को टारगेट नहीं किया जाएगा।
आज हम आंदोलनकारी लोगों के विषयों पर चर्चा करने के लिए यहाँ आए थे। लगभग 2 घंटे बातचीत चली। सरकार की ओर से मैं और मेरे साथ भारत सरकार के मंत्री जितेंद्र सिंह जी बातचीत में शामिल हुए। उनकी बातें हमने सुनी। बातें सौहार्दपूर्ण वातावरण में हुई और
Well, now, over the last 48 hours, the government has also launched its biggest outreach since these protests began. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced fast-track courts for paper leak cases, promised a stronger anti-paper leak law, and even released a late-night video message directly addressing the students in that same Instagram modality that we are used to. In another significant development, activist Sonam Wangchuk, he ended his 26-day hunger strike after receiving assurances from Union Ministers JP Nadda and Dr. Jitendra Singh. What a moment and scene that was from that Medanta hospital room. Wangchuk has appealed for peace even as the protests continue, and the CJP continues to reclaim the protest site. Interestingly, today's cabinet meeting also reflected the government's communication strategy. The Prime Minister reportedly urged the ministers to become more active on Instagram, saying that that is where India's youth are, and explaining why his message to students was first released on that platform as well. And here's how the government is tackling the protest. Behind the scenes, different ministers have been assigned specific responsibilities. The Prime Minister leading the reform push. You've got Union Home Minister Amit Shah. He's overseeing law and order coordination. JP Nadda, we've all seen those pictures, has become the government's chief negotiator. Dr. Jitendra Singh is handling direct engagement with protest leaders. Kiran Rijiju is managing political outreach in the parliament as well, whilst Arjun Ram Meghwal is working on the proposed legal reforms. Now, it is a coordinated political, legislative and administrative response that has come so far. But dialogue or deadlock, that seems to be the big question. Where do things stand at the moment? There has been movement, there has been dialogue, there have been assurances, but there has also been a firm refusal from the CJP to dilute its principal demand. Tomorrow's meeting could determine whether this process moves forward towards a compromise or whether the protests escalate across the country once again. That's what they're saying. If the demands are not met, a nationwide protest call is also on the cards. Is dialogue enough without any accountability? Can reforms satisfy protesters if resignations don't follow? And where should the government draw the line between political responsibility and institutional reform? Let's open this up with our panel tonight. Advocate Manasvi Thapar, political analyst with us on the broadcast, and Professor Rajiv Lochan, author. Many thanks, Professor, for taking out the time. Advocate, how do you decode this? From all that we've been seeing since last night, we've been talking about 3 separate power structures. You've got Sonam Wangchuk, you've got the Gen Z, that's the actual power behind all of this. And then you've got the Cockroach Janta Party that is, trying to strive for any kind of legitimacy in all of this. And why not? Because they're the ones sitting right across JP Nadda and Dr. Jitendra Singh. But the demand for Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation, they're sticking and standing firm to that. Do you think that's going to be the main sticking point, whether these confrontations or conversations move forward?
See, the biggest ingredient of a protest in India has been hunger strikes. Be it Bhagat Singh's hunger strike, be it Mahatma Gandhi's hunger strike, be it Anna Hazare's hunger strike. I think the biggest turning point in politics have been hunger strike, and the hunger strike is over now, and the demands are being met step by step. It is being happening. It is too late, too little, but it is a beginning point, and this is where a huge curvature in the politics of BJP is going to happen from. I think from yesterday, it has already started with Prime Minister reaching out through Instagram where Gen Zs are.
Yeah.
That vote bank, which was always there, who used to celebrate votes, but they were not like guaranteed voters of any political party because these are Gen Zs. They like to try, they like to experiment. They are the faster generations than all of us.
Yep.
So I think the reaching point is there, though late, because there's a huge generational gap between the ministers and the Gen Zs, and they have to match it up. And now I feel that matching up is happening. The communication department of BJP is now intact. They're trying to reach out to Gen Zs directly.
Yeah.
See the communication. You have to understand this is less of politics, more of communication. Now the communication is happening between the Gen Zs and the prime ministers and the ministers directly. Before that, there was Sonam Wangchuk who was there in between. There was Dipke who was in between. There was CJP who was in between. But Gen Zs are having a direct communication. This direct communication is the prime minister making a communication. People are commenting on it. There now the division of ideas are also coming in. See the major demands are happening. It is the only demand which is not being met as of now is the demand of Dharmendra Pradhan resigning or not resigning. Apart from that, I think all the other demands are being met. So this is where the division of ideas are also going to converge.
Needless to speak of. You're absolutely right, Professor. By making the Education Minister's resignation non-negotiable, because those were, the sound bites that came from Jantar Mantar. That was the reaction from Saurav Das and Ashutosh Ranka, who met the union ministers. Has the Cockroach Janta Party strengthened its bargaining position or made a negotiated settlement more difficult here? Deadlock versus dialogue. Your opinion here, Professor.
See, the Cockroach Janta Party was never interested in any dialogue. They kept on saying that they wanted to talk, but they did not. The talk was not about listening to the other party. The talk was about them speaking out whatever they wanted. They have had their chance to speak out. They have laid out their three big demands. Of those three demands, two have been accepted. One is in the hands of the Prime Minister. It is for the Prime Minister to decide who will be the Education Minister. The Cockroach Janta Party has no role to play in that. For me to say that the Prime Minister should dilute his position merely because a few hundred people in Jantar Mantar are demanding it, that would be very, very unfair. Because as I've said earlier also, there are thousands and thousands of young people who don't stand with the Cockroach Janta Party or the demands that they're making or the manner
I agree. I absolutely agree with you, Professor.
All the problems that happen. Also, please notice that this particular agitation, people autonomously came forward in Patna, in Bombay, in Delhi, in Chandigarh. And these students who had moved enough, this is the kind of thing which had happened at the time of the Mandal agitation also. This was the same territory in which the Mandal agitation took place, and the Mandal agitation attracted people with grave consequences for a large number of them. The thing over here to remember is that these young people are getting so upset with whatever is happening in the mismanagement of these exams. And what are the kind of jobs that they're looking for? They're looking for jobs which are white-collar jobs which don't earn much. And an assistant professor, for example, in Punjab, is barely paid, a permanent position assistant professor is barely paid 15,450 rupees till recently. And no allowances, no nothing. A police constable in Punjab used to get 8,000 rupees till the new pay commission came in. Now, these are people who are fighting for, who are putting themselves out on a limb for such less paying jobs.
Yeah.
There is a major problem that our education system has not been able to prime students, prime the youth for looking for jobs, looking for work, creating wealth outside of these small-time white-collar jobs. These small-time white-collar jobs are not worth this much of an effort. But somehow the education system, the political system has not been able to convince anyone that there are better things to do in life. Today, for example, being a urban company professional ends up getting more money than a professor in the university does. Or till very recently, before the Uber and Ola system started collapsing, an Uber and Ola taxi driver used to earn a little more than what an assistant professor in Punjab used to earn. Under the circumstances, we have to understand that the government has to move forward. Mr. Modi has offered on in the past, said that the youth have to learn to start creating work rather than looking for service work. However, the government has made no effort. The education system has made no effort in this direction. The NEP, the new education policy, which was introduced a little while ago, that did say that there will be a fourth year in which students will be given practice of work, but that internship system has not succeeded anywhere.
No, Professor, I absolutely agree. You're making very credible points. You're making very pertinent points in the sense that all these factors have come together, and this is the actual foundation of what we're seeing in Jantar Mantar right now. But not to digress from the deadlock and dialogue that we're talking about today, do you see today's meeting as a genuine conflict resolution, or do you see today's meeting as simply a political effort or a delaying tactic, maybe a delaying tactic by Cockroach Janta Party? But what's your assessment on that front?
See, the government has shown that it has got its ideas in the right place. It has been playing very soft with the Cockroach Janta Party and people who are agitating, because the government does understand, people in politics do understand that the students have a genuine grievance. However, as I said earlier, it's not for the Cockroach Janta Party or those agitators at Jantar Mantar to decide who is going to be the Education Minister of India. And I've earlier said in this program of yours that Dharmendra Pradhan is not responsible for the mess that was going on in his ministry. Ministers are not executive officers. Executive officers are someone else. Ministers merely create policy, provide a bridge between the public and the executive.
We're also learning, let me point it out and put it on record that I think a major overhaul of the NTA is on the cards. About 47 of those NTA officials have been identified. They're going to be shunted out soon. There's a structural overhaul, a major rejig of the NTA that is also on the card. This is what we're picking up from our sources. I think it's going to be, soon out in the public domain. So when you talk about outreach, you've got Prime Minister's fast-track courts. You've got the cabinet deciding on a 3-month timeline for those culprits to be brought to justice. And what's more is that the Prime Minister is now using what Advocate Manasvi Thapar was talking about, the social media bubble that only included Twitter, only included Facebook, that has now also, included Instagram now with the Prime Minister's late night message, which is also a time where the Gen Z is available on social media, specifically on that very platform. The government has promised fast-track courts, it's promised tougher laws, it's promised examination reforms. But do you think, is that enough? Advocate, I'm going to come to you. Is that enough? The government has stretched an olive branch, but is that enough at this point in time to restore the public confidence, to restore, quote-unquote, fixing accountability?
100% note. I think the biggest question which people are going to ask is I remember in 2017, Prime Minister in the Parliament had said, previous Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had this artful thing of having a bath with the raincoat, and he had mastered that art. And similarly, while we are not blaming Dharmendra Pradhan, we have the right to blame the executives and all the other people who are involved in NTA scam. But I feel Dharmendra Pradhan and the ministry and the Prime Minister is equally responsible in terms of taking accountability, taking responsibility, taking resignations. If we questioned UPA and UPA 1, UPA 2 on corruption, why we, the same people of India, can question Dharmendra Pradhan with the same strike? I think we have that right, and we should question Dharmendra Pradhan. And asking resignation is not running away from accountability. In fact, it is fixing accountability. And when Prime Minister, when he was in opposition while he was the chief of Gujarat, he asked the same kind of questions.
You're saying it's not enough, advocate, but you've got to start somewhere. And I was just talking about it. I think it's now been corroborated. Let me read that out again for our viewers and, help us understand. Major crackdown in the NTA, 47 officials terminated. It seems like more cleanup is going to follow. In a major bid to bring out serious examination reforms, NTA has terminated 47 officials from their service. Legal and criminal actions will also be taken against some of these officials. More reformative actions to follow. Help us decode this, advocate.
I feel it's a great beginning now, but it is late. Where I have said it earlier, but at the same time, in politics, it's not about the beginning or the ending. It is mostly about the optics. The optics with the Gen Z and the people and the opposition is not going to go right with this. You have to. Why Dharmendra Pradhan is such a key important position for BJP? But that is the only thing which I understand is they don't want his resignation because of the pressure politics which is happening. Otherwise, they would have been okay with the resignation. In the past, we have seen so many people resign and so many people coming up in BJP, newer faces. And also, before this particular protest, 15 days back, there was a grapevine movement which was happening that there is a change in ministry which is going to happen. So many ministers are going to be shunted. So many new portfolios are going to be added with ministers. New faces are going to be accommodated. And during that particular time, we had seen so many parties merging with NDA, so many MPs joining NDAs while they have been constant in opposition. While that law, which was supposed to be delimitation law, which was supposed to be passed, has suddenly been at the backstage because of this particular protest. So there's so many things which BJP was trying to build up, but suddenly that came to a halt because of particular protest. So having said that, the point here is optics are very important for BJP. It is not just a token resignation. It's about the optics and intent of the BJP. While the crackdown, while the NTA being completely revamped and the negotiation have started, it's a great thing for the country and for the Gen Z. But what about?
But you're saying too little, too late.
And optics of BJP. The optics of BJP is not right for BJP themselves. And that is why the outreach program directly coming from the Prime Minister have started. And why? Because
Understood. Professor, advocate here says too little, too late. So, I mean, on the Libra scales, how do you weigh it? Too little, too late, or better late than never?
See, let me add to what he said. Mr. Modi, when he came to the office for the first time, had very clearly said that he would be going against corruption. However, over the years, we have seen corruption only increase. At the lower level, the lower staff does not seem to be scared of being caught at all. So while on the one side, there are a handful of people who get arrested, about them we come to know from the newspapers, there is very little information about anyone actually being punished. So this merely encourages, because in Chandigarh, for example, just recently from two governments, Haryana and Chandigarh, a handful of people managed to con off about 1,000 crore rupees. Without anyone being able to check it. So this leaves, as Manasvi Thapar said, this leaves very bad optics. Those bad optics are the ones which are pushing everyone to be very sympathetic to the demands of the CJP. And those are the kind of optics which the Pradhan Mantri will have to deal with. The Pradhan Mantri also needs to ensure that governance improves and visibly improves. It can't be that merely announcements are made and nothing really happens on the ground. However, one of the areas in which the government is very, very good, the Delhi police particularly, is in clearing areas of protesters. So if the dialogue does not happen, or if the dialogue does not result in the CJP protest being taken off in the next few days, I am sure that the Delhi police will step in and the Delhi police action will result in some harm to a handful of people. And as I had said earlier, this will mean that in the end we will say that we decry police brutality, draconian action should not happen, etc. But the harm that would be caused to the individuals would be real-time harm. And I'm slightly worried about that. That should not happen, because these are not issues which require anyone to sacrifice their lives or to be so murdered from it.
Before I wrap up this segment, my question to the both of you, and I'll start with the Professor. Professor Lochan, when JP Nadda says we need time to discuss, what do you think is going to happen behind those, closed doors, those backroom channels? What must be happening when the Cockroach Janta Party says 1 crore rupees is fine, FIRs is fine, Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation is non-negotiable, and JP Nadda and Jitendra Singh say, we need some time, we'll get back to you. What must be happening in those back-channel talks?
CJP leaders are youth. Mr. Wangchuk was a 60-year-old gentleman. Mr. Wangchuk understood that if you allow such protests to continue, that can result in great violence and great harm. Much like I, as an old man, keep on saying, please avoid violence and please avoid harm. Mr. Wangchuk also said effectively the same thing and withdrew his hunger strike. As far as the CJP leaders are concerned, if they do not understand that the way they are going on and they are being persistent about their demands, saying that these are non-negotiable things, then chances are there will be strong state action against them.
Okay.
And that strong state action, the cost will be paid not by these 2 or 3 people who are sitting on the stage. The cost will be paid by the young boys and girls who are in the crowd. And many of those young boys and girls are genuinely concerned about the problems that they face, the problems that the country is facing, and it will be a rather sad kind of a thing to happen.
Fair enough. Understood. Advocate, what do you say? The cost is going to be paid by all those that are there protesting. And I do agree that, you know, the entire Gen Z power, the raw power behind this movement, it's gone beyond the realm of just a Cockroach Janta Party that can rein this, in. But when the Cockroach Janta Party says that more nationwide strikes are also on the cards, how do you think this is going to play out? Giving you the final word here.
No, I don't feel that is going to happen because I think government has understood the power of Gen Z, and they understand the mistake which has been conducted, and they are acting on it. One Gen Z understands action. Other Gen Zs understanding that there is some kind of negotiation happening, and they cannot be on the streets just without a cause. And also the biggest anchor of this particular protest was Sonam Wangchuk. After his hunger strike being ended, I don't feel that this momentum will carry on. Otherwise, this will just be a political momentum backed by a few people, a few political parties, not a key political movement or a protest anymore, because the cause of it has been addressed. When the protest is only live till the time the cause is not addressed, while the cause is being addressed day night since yesterday, I feel this is going, and also celebrities coming out, also people, key stakeholders in our country. Debates are happening wherein people are saying the protest does not hold that sheen anymore. When Wangchuk has gone out, Prime Minister has reached out, action has been taken out. So what remains is the political ambition not being fulfilled of some people. That's
couple of things that are certain is that the government is taking action. That's for sure. The other thing is that it might have lost some momentum with the hunger strike coming to an end, but the CJP is also firm on its demand. And the third thing is that dialogue has begun. The rhetoric, needless to say, from both sides, it remains sharp. Some demands are being discussed. One of them remains firmly contested. And whether tomorrow's meeting brings a breakthrough or a bigger confrontation could decide where this movement goes next. Let's wait and find out. Let's wait for the dust to settle, and let's also hope that good sense prevails. Professor Lochan and Advocate Thapa, many thanks for taking out the time and helping us put this dialogue versus deadlock story into perspective. All right, then, shifting our focus here to the other top story that we're tracking for you. And this is again important because we're talking about India's indigenous defense Atmanirbhar boost. India's long-range air defense has relied on imported strategic systems for a very long time. But just yesterday, that journey took an important and a very indigenous turn. The Defense Research and Development Organization, or the DRDO, has successfully carried out the maiden flight test of Project Kusha, India's own long-range surface-to-air SAM missile system. The test conducted off the coast of Odisha saw the missile successfully intercept a simulated high-speed, high-altitude aerial target. And just to tell you what Project Kusha actually is, it is India's indigenous long-range air defense system developed by DRDO under the Extended Range Air Defense System program. It is designed to intercept a wide spectrum of aerial threats, from fighter aircraft and cruise missiles to drones and other high-value airborne assets. Importantly, Project Kusha is not being built to replace the Russian S-400 like some might believe. Instead, it is meant to complement it. It is part of the Darshan Chakra setup. And whilst it significantly reduces India's dependence on imported strategic air defense platforms, that's another one of those important points. It has 3 variants. The system will eventually field 3 of those interceptor variants. The M1 missile will engage targets up to 150 kilometers away. The M2 extends that envelope to 250 kilometers. And M3 flagship interceptor is expected to reach between 350 to 400 kilometers, placing it in the same long-range category as some of the world's most advanced air defense system. These are also layers of, the Sudarshan Chakra that we're going to be decoding with a very credible voice with us on the broadcast. Stay tuned. I'm going to introduce that man to you in just a bit. The strategic implications are significant. Project Kusha strengthens India's defense self-reliance, expands projects for military bases, strategic infrastructure and major population centers. That's what it's going to protect, and places India amongst a select group of countries that are capable of developing indigenous long-range surface-to-air missile systems. Its modular architecture also promises lower production and life cycle costs for the armed forces. And these are some of the current limitations. Not many, but let's point them out as well, highlight them. This is only just the beginning. Today's success marks the first major milestone, but several developmental and user trials they still lie ahead. Operational induction is expected between 2028 and 2030. The system will also have to integrate seamlessly with India's existing S-400, the Barak 8 and the Indian Air Force's integrated air command and control system, whilst future upgrades will focus on tackling